So I have literally just recovered from a week-long sickness. I can finally film this video for you guys because I can finally speak. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about reading. Basically, I was always a big reader. I loved my little books. My mom used to barge in on me reading under the sheets as a child. Like, that was the kind of reader I was. I need to know what happens next, no matter what it is. It could be a movie, a series, a book. I could be watching a horrible movie and most people would have clicked out, but something in me is I have to watch it to the end, so I will stay to the end. I start a series, it's like 7 seasons long, I will finish it. Similar thing applies to books. Once I start a book, I can't really put it down. I will literally sit there and finish the whole book. And I grew up like that. So I grew up reading, I enjoyed reading all kinds of books, and this was before book talk was a thing. This is before reading was cool. I would illegally download these books as PDF files on my laptop during class. Recently, with the rise of book talk and with the rise of everyone going crazy over these very specific books and certain authors, it has sparked something within me. First thing, I have actually read all of the I don't think all of them, but I have read the Akata series. I think back when I was reading it, only like the first 2 or 3 books were out. At the time, I actually had no idea more books were released since. I remember reading it when I was in high school. It was so long ago to the point where I don't actually remember what the books are about. I feel a little bit of FOMO because everyone's talking about it, and I would love to experience that for the first time and talk about it with everyone else. But I am also the kind of person who hates to do anything twice. And I know that there are people who love rewatching movies. For me, I don't really like watching movies twice. I contemplated it for a second, like reading the Akator series just so I could know what people were talking about. At the same time, I did read it many, many years ago. That's almost 10 years ago now. A very long time ago, I read those books. And I'm sure those books are great. At the time, my little young mind was blown away and I thoroughly enjoyed those books, but I don't think I will be rereading them. However, the one series that I did not read at the time is the Throne of Glass series. And so I did buy the entire series. I'm going to do a book haul after this, and I am very excited to read that one. I'm assuming it's going to be very similar to Akator. The only difference is because I know I haven't read it, I will enjoy it, and because it's my first time reading it, I'm hoping that the emotions will be fresh. I am enjoying the fact that reading has become cool again. I have different phases where sometimes I will read romance and I will just read romance so into it that my next book needs to be another romance. It needs to get better and better. And then you kind of hit a slump where you get sick of it. You get kind of bored of reading the same thing over and over again. And that's usually when I go into mystery. I love me a good murder mystery. And then usually after a few books of those, they kind of follow a similar timeline and you don't get surprised at the plot twists anymore. And that's usually when I'll shift to fantasy. So, the classic werewolves, vampires, fairies, that kind of thing. Fantasy. Is this like, are you doing like a show and tell? I was talking about the fantasy genre. I think that's usually when I'll go over to nonfiction books, the biographies, the self-help, the atomic habits, and then it will repeat. It is a good cycle to have. I am happy to have such a wide variety of interest in books. Another thing we need to talk about is reading slumps and how to overcome them. The biggest thing for me is when I'm in a reading slump, I can't read anything. My brain needs to have a minimum of 3 things going on at one time. Small screen, big screen, the works. When you get to that point, you're not really doing anything properly. You want to read and genuinely enjoy a book, you just need to read in silence or with music or whatever your vibe is. I realized that when I hit a reading slump, I'm in that really noisy headspace where I can't sit down in silence. Something that I like to do is actually just force myself to read, even if it's for 5 to 10 minutes. So what you can do is set a 10-minute timer on your phone and sit down, have your ass read for just that 10-minute timer. Usually, if the book is good enough, I will get into it and continue reading, and that's how I overcome the slump. And sometimes the book's just not good. Sometimes the book's just not engaging enough, or sometimes you're not in the right headspace, and that's okay. As long as you're reading 10 minutes a day, that's a good place to start. And give yourself time and the space, and it might take time to create that space, to create that vibe for yourself. Maybe your room is a little bit chaotic. Find like that little corner that works for you, and it might take some time, but once you get it, you will overcome your slump. I want all of you to work on overcoming your slump. Another thing is, I am a really fast reader. Okay, there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, the good thing about it is that I can finish books really quickly. As long as I'm not in a slump and I'm in my reading mood, then I will get through a book a day at least. That can be a good thing if you are trying to read all the books that you own. On the other hand, it's a little bit, how do I say it? It's almost like I'm reading in fast forward. And so sometimes when I am reading a genuinely good book, I actually really like this book and I want to experience every emotion this book has to give me. I literally have to stop myself. Like I have to take a deep breath, force myself to read slowly so I can read every single word on the page. Like I don't know if anyone is gonna understand this. So yeah, sometimes I have to force myself to slow down. I'm not sure if anyone can relate to that, but that is one thing about how I read. But I think it's really nice how a lot of people have been enjoying reading these days and how it's become a really big thing. I don't think it's healthy to only read romance books or only read thrillers or to only read fantasy. You kind of trap yourself into a very specific plot line or into a very specific character set. You're not really opening yourself to different storylines, different authors, different writing styles, if anything. I think for me, I'm mostly picky about my writing styles. Usually, I'll know whether the book is good or not in the first 2 or 3 pages. So now we are gonna do a book haul. If you watched my previous video, I have been curating my little bookshelf and I have been collecting these books to put on the shelf. So my first book haul, which I don't think I actually did on YouTube, but I did do a book haul on TikTok. Pretty much, I would say 80 to 90% of those books were romance. And so now this is my second book haul. It's a much bigger book haul, so I was saving it for this video. Most of them are fantasy genre, I think. First series that we have is the Prison Healer trilogy. So I was a little bit hesitant about getting this series because I do have some feelings about reading Australian writing. It felt quite strange reading it in a romance book previously. I know that this is a fantasy series, and I was thinking, like, how Australian can fantasy be? I thought I would give it a go, and it looks really good. So I've taken the books out of the box and they look really nice actually. The Prison Healer, that's the first one. So I'm guessing there's a prison. Rebel Queen, Trial by Ordeal, a series of elemental challenges. And then the second book is The Gilded Cage. This is really pretty actually. I'm actually really excited for these now. The Blood Trader, and this is the third book. I love when books are in chronological order. I hate it when, like, okay, hate is a strong word, but I am not a fan of when books switch back and forth. And then the next series that I got is this one. This is really heavy. Lancaster Prep Collection, and it has 4 books in the series, and I think this is a romance. It's a series of 4 books, but I think each book has different characters. So let's open this one. The reason why I really like buying in collections is because once the books are all together, they are a lot more affordable than buying the books separately. This series in particular, the books separately were about like 12, 13, or $14 each, but in the series, they were $8 each if you divide the cost by the number of books. So much more worth it when you want to buy lots of books. So the first book in this series is Things I Wanted to Say, Enemies to Lovers vibe. The second book is A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime. This one I have seen a lot. I think this one will be good. I'm excited. The third book is Promises We Meant to Keep. These books are actually really nice as well. All of their blurbs are very simple. Like the book design is very sleek and simple, so I like that. And the last book, I'll Always Be With You. Oh, this girl is a Lancaster. That means her family owns a school. So that's the second series. And I think if you are getting into reading and you don't really know where to start, I would recommend starting with a good solid series. I feel like not only, like I just mentioned, are they really good bang for your buck, but they give you something to hold on to, if that makes sense. They excite you and then they encourage you to come back to reading because there's another book waiting for you. The next series, which is actually a duology by Carissa Broadbent, The Serpent and The Wings of Night. These are big. The second part of the book just came out and I wasn't gonna read these, but I heard very good things about this book. I don't know what it's about, but it's giving Hunger Games meets vampires in an epic fantasy romance of dark magic and bloodthirsty intrigue, and that sounds really good. I do love me Hunger Games. I read all of the Hunger Games books, and they weren't cheap. I will say though, these books were like $20 each, but definitely the new release was a bit more expensive, I think. But it does look really nice, so I'm hoping that these will be really good. Next, I have a cute little romance series. I think this is another duology. I'm not sure if there's a third book. Actually, there might be a third book. I'm looking at the pictures on the back and I think there's a third book, but it's These by Anna Huang. And if you guys know, Anna Huang is the author who wrote the Twisted Love series, and I've heard that those were really popular on Book Talk. So the first book is If We Ever Meet Again. Second book is If the Sun Never Sets. And this book is set 5 years after the first book, so I thought once again that would be really interesting. We have a nice chronological timeline and the covers are super cute. They study abroad in Shanghai and I thought that would be really fun to see some culture in a book like this. And then lucky last but definitely not least, yes, I got the entire Throne of Glass series. They had this massive collection. I am quite excited to get into the fantasy realm with these. There's 8 books in this series and some of them are pretty big. I'm very excited to get started. Honestly, I have so many books to read now and I have no idea where to start. Comment down below which book I should read next based on the book haul that you saw today. So choose a book or a series and let me know what I should read next. I am beyond excited to start reading and do more book reviews. My first ever book review that I did in the last video. I'm very happy that I did it, but I will say it was a little bit rusty. It was a little bit not informative. I was just saying what was coming to my mind and I just had these books. I had no structure. I did miss a lot of main points. Like I missed a lot of things that I wanted to address or kind of explain about the books. Practice makes perfect and at least I started somewhere. I'm hoping that the book reviews will get better moving forward and I'm very excited to have a platform to speak about my reading experiences. I think the reason I stopped reading in the first place was because I would read a book and then I'd have no one to talk to about the book afterwards. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's little book talk. Mandu has just been quietly joining us in the background. Little angel. I hope you guys are excited for my next book review and the next video to come. And thank you for staying up until this point in the video. And I will see you guys next time. Mwah.